Hollywood has always been full of glitz, glamour, and unbelievable stories. But nothing grabs attention like the strange and shocking ways some stars left this world. These aren't your usual endings. These are the jaw-dropping moments that left fans speechless and newspapers buzzing. Have you ever wondered how fate can twist reality into something more bizarre than fiction? Buckle up, because what you're about to hear will make you gasp more than once. Vic Morrow. Imagine filming a thrilling movie scene only to have it turn into one of the most infamous tragedies in Hollywood history. That's exactly what happened to Vic Morrow. Known for his tough guy roles in films like Blackboard Jungle and the TV series Combat, Morrow was cast in Twilight Zone, the movie in 1982. What was supposed to be a spectacular action sequence turned fatal in the blink of an eye. During a nighttime shoot involving explosions and helicopters, the scene called for Morrow's character to carry 2 children across a Vietnam-style battlefield. But chaos struck when pyrotechnics ignited near the low-flying helicopter. The rotor lost control, sending the aircraft crashing down. Morrow and the children had no chance. The horrific accident instantly became international news, sparking endless debates about safety standards on sets. The tragedy didn't just shock fans, it changed Hollywood forever. The incident led to major lawsuits, criminal trials, and a complete overhaul of how dangerous stunts are handled. Some say Morrow's final role was cursed, tied to the eerie subject matter of the Twilight Zone. Think about it. 1 minute you're acting in a scene, the next you're part of a real-life nightmare. Vic Morrow's story reminds us that behind the magic of movies, danger can lurk in ways no one could ever script. Brandon Lee. If there's one story that makes people shiver with its eerie coincidence, it's the death of Brandon Lee. The son of martial arts legend Bruce Lee, Brandon was on the brink of superstardom in 1993 with his breakout role in The Crow. The gothic action film was designed to launch him into a new league of fame. But what happened during production still feels unreal. Brandon was filming a climactic scene that involved him being shot on screen. The prop should have been harmless, but due to a series of oversights, fragments from an earlier dummy round lodged inside the barrel. When a blank was fired, it had the same force as the real thing. Brandon collapsed instantly. Cast and crew thought it was acting, until it became terrifyingly clear it wasn't. He was rushed to the hospital, but after hours of surgery, the young actor was gone at just 28 years old. The parallels with his father's untimely and mysterious passing only deepened the sense of shock. Fans worldwide couldn't believe such lightning could strike twice in the same family. Despite the tragedy, The Crow was completed using stand-ins and digital tricks, and it went on to become a cult classic. To this day, Brandon Lee's final performance stands as both haunting and unforgettable. Steve Irwin. The world knew Steve Irwin as the fearless crocodile hunter, an Australian wildlife expert who brought humor, energy, and genuine passion to his encounters with the most dangerous animals on the planet. He had wrestled crocodiles, stared down snakes, and charmed millions with his larger-than-life personality. But the way he passed left fans stunned, because it wasn't the creature most expected. In 2006, Irwin was filming a documentary called Ocean's Deadliest when he entered the shallow waters of the Great Barrier Reef. There, he encountered a massive stingray. Normally, stingrays are docile, but in a freak moment, one lashed out. Its barb pierced him in the chest. Tragically, it struck a vital organ, and Irwin collapsed almost instantly. His cameraman captured the incident, though the footage has never been released. Many viewers initially thought it had to be some kind of exaggerated story, because after all, Irwin had survived so many close calls before. Yet, in the end, it was one of the ocean's gentlest creatures that brought down the man who seemed indestructible, The loss sent shockwaves across the globe. Tributes poured in from fans, world leaders, and even children who had grown up mimicking his iconic catchphrases. Steve Irwin's passing remains one of the most bizarre and heartbreaking examples of how unpredictable nature can truly be. Martha Mansfield. Long before modern Hollywood safety standards, movie sets were often a wild mix of danger and improvisation. In 1923, actress Martha Mansfield learned this in the most devastating way possible. She was filming The Warrens of Virginia, a Civil War drama, when her costume became a death trap. Mansfield was dressed in a massive hoop-skirt gown, layered with highly flammable fabric, typical of period dramas. During a break between scenes, she sat inside a car near the set. Someone casually lit a match nearby, and in seconds, her dress ignited like a torch. Witnesses said flames consumed her clothing almost instantly. Her co-star and chauffeur tried desperately to smother the fire, but the damage was catastrophic. She was rushed to the hospital, suffering terrible burns over most of her body. Within hours, the 24-year-old star was gone. The tragedy shocked audiences of the silent film era and underscored how unregulated and unsafe early filmmaking could be. Martha had just begun carving out a promising career in both stage and film, and her shocking end froze her image in time as one of Hollywood's lost starlets. It's chilling to think that something as simple as a carelessly tossed match could erase a rising talent so suddenly. Her story is a reminder of how fragile the line was between fantasy on screen and danger lurking behind the camera. Jan-Erik Hexum. Sometimes, even a harmless prank can end in a shocking twist. Actor Jan-Erik Hexum was a rising TV star in the early 1980s, known for his rugged good looks and charm. Cast in the action series Cover Up, he seemed poised for big things. But one fateful day on set in 1984 turned everything upside down. During a long delay in shooting, Hexum grew restless. To lighten the mood, he picked up a prop gun loaded with blanks and began joking with crew members. He pressed it to his head and pulled the trigger, thinking it was a harmless gag. But blanks are not toys. The explosive force from the cartridge fired at point-blank range caused severe internal injury. Crew members rushed to his side as he collapsed, still believing it was part of his act until the reality sank in. Hexum was taken to the hospital, but the damage was irreversible. At only 26 years old, he was declared gone days later after life support was withdrawn. The incident sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry, sparking debates about the handling of props on sets. Fans were left in disbelief. A young man with a promising career, gone because of a playful joke that went too far. Jan-Erik Hexum's story stands as one of the most bizarre and tragic reminders that even stage drama can turn deadly in real life. Isadora Duncan. Few stories feel more cinematic than the passing of Isadora Duncan, the legendary dancer-turned-actress. Known for her free spirit and flowing scarves, Duncan embodied glamour and rebellion in the 1920s, but her trademark accessory became her undoing. In 1927, she climbed into a convertible in Nice, France, with her signature long scarf trailing behind. As the car sped forward, the fabric whipped back and caught in the open wheel. The force yanked her neck, pulling her violently from the car. Witnesses were horrified. The very accessory that symbolized her artistry instantly ended her life. The event shocked the world and forever tied Duncan's name to one of history's strangest accidents. Fans couldn't believe that such a vibrant performer, who once defied convention with daring dances, could be lost in such a freak moment. Isadora Duncan's tragic end remains unforgettable, not only because of its bizarre nature, but because it seemed like a cruel twist of fate, where beauty and danger collided in one haunting instant. Leslie Howard. Leslie Howard, remembered as Ashley Wilkes in Gone with the Wind, lived a life touched by both stardom and war. But his death in 1943 was nothing short of cinematic and mysterious. Howard was traveling from Lisbon to London on a civilian airliner when disaster struck. German forces, patrolling the skies, targeted the plane. Believing it carried important figures or secret cargo, they shot it down over the Bay of Biscay. Everyone on board perished. What makes the event so bizarre is the swirling cloud of speculation around it. Some believed Howard was working secretly for the Allies, passing information under the cover of his film career. Others claimed the Nazis mistook him for Winston Churchill, who had been rumored to travel the same route. For fans, the shock was enormous. A Hollywood star, felled not by illness or age, but by the chaos of war. Howard's final flight remains wrapped in conspiracy theories, but what is clear is that he became one of the rare actors whose life and death intersected directly with global history. Tommy Cooper. Tommy Cooper was a beloved British comedian and actor, famous for his slapstick magic tricks and booming laughter. But his final performance in 1984 turned into one of the most bizarre moments ever broadcast live. During a variety show, Cooper was mid-act when he suddenly slumped to the floor. The audience roared with laughter, assuming it was just another one of his comic routines. After all, collapsing was a staple of his act. But this time, it wasn't a gag. He was suffering a heart attack on stage in front of millions of viewers. The chilling part? The laughter continued for minutes because no one in the theater realized what was really happening. Even backstage, it took precious time before the seriousness sank in. Cooper never recovered. The moment was so surreal that it's often cited as one of the most unforgettable examples of reality blending with performance. Fans were devastated to lose him, but many also admit it was fitting, in a dark way, that he left the world doing what he loved, making people laugh. Paul Mantz. Paul Mantz wasn't a household name, but if you've seen daring aerial stunts in Hollywood classics, chances are he was behind them. Known as one of the greatest stunt pilots in film history, Mantz worked on hits like Stagecoach and It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. But in 1965, while filming The Flight of the Phoenix, his luck ran out in shocking fashion. The movie called for a dramatic crash landing sequence. Mantz, flying a specially built aircraft, attempted the maneuver, but the plane struck the desert ground at a harsh angle, broke apart, and flipped. Mantz was killed instantly. His co-pilot survived but was badly injured. The irony? The film was about survivors of a plane crash, building a new aircraft from the wreckage. That eerie connection between the storyline and Mantz's real fate left audiences chilled when the movie finally hit theaters. Hollywood lost one of its most skilled stuntmen that day, and his death became a sobering reminder that the thrills on screen often come with real-life danger behind the scenes. Anthony Creighton. Anthony Creighton may not have been as famous as some of the other names on this list, but his death in 2005 was so unusual that it drew headlines worldwide. A British actor and playwright who once collaborated with dramatist John Osborne, Creighton's end came in a way almost too odd to believe. While at home, he reportedly began eating a sandwich when disaster struck. A sudden choking episode turned critical. Despite efforts to help, he passed away before medical services could arrive. What made this story so bizarre wasn't just the simplicity of it, but the irony. Here was a man who had lived through wars, survived the struggles of the theater, and worked in the unpredictable world of entertainment, only to be taken by something as ordinary as a snack. For those who knew him, it felt like one of life's cruel jokes, a reminder that fate doesn't always follow a grand, dramatic script. Sometimes, it sneaks in through the everyday moments we never expect. Creighton's passing proved that bizarre endings don't always involve danger or spectacle. They can strike in the quietest, most mundane ways. Charles Rocket. Charles Rocket was once a rising star on Saturday Night Live, famous for his sharp wit and quirky humor. But his story ended in one of the strangest ways ever linked to a Hollywood name. In 2005, Rocket was discovered in a quiet field near his home. Authorities confirmed it was self-inflicted harm, but the way it was carried out left fans completely stunned. Here was a man who had worked with stars, appeared in films like Dumb and Dumber, and even played villains with a touch of comedy, yet his departure was something no one could have predicted. To this day, people debate what pushed him there, but the shocking method made headlines around the world. It wasn't the career missteps or the controversies people remembered, but rather the odd and unsettling way his story closed. Charles Rocket became another name in the list of performers whose endings felt ripped from some surreal script. Barbara Colby. Barbara Colby's story feels almost like an unsolved mystery wrapped in Hollywood glitter. Known for her bright comedic performances, she had just landed a recurring role on Phyllis, the spin-off of The Mary Tyler Moore Show. The future looked promising. But one night in 1975, everything changed in a flash. Colby was leaving an acting class in Los Angeles with a friend when unknown men suddenly appeared. Without warning, they opened fire. Barbara died instantly, and her companion was badly injured, but survived long enough to confirm the attack seemed totally random. No robbery, no explanation, just senseless violence. The case was never solved, leaving friends, family, and fans with endless questions. How could someone so talented, on the cusp of real stardom, vanish in such a meaningless way? Her story is remembered not just for the heartbreak, but also for the eerie randomness. Barbara Colby's death remains one of Hollywood's most haunting mysteries. Judith Barcy. Judith Barcy was the little girl with the big voice you definitely remember. She voiced Ducky in The Land Before Time and Anne-Marie in All Dogs Go to Heaven. Her career was skyrocketing by the late 1980s, and Hollywood saw her as one of the brightest young stars of the era. But her real life hid a chilling truth. At home, Judith lived under the shadow of an unstable father whose behavior grew more erratic. Friends and neighbors noticed warning signs, but no one expected the situation to spiral into tragedy. In 1988, Judith and her mother lost their lives in a horrifying act within their own home. She was just 10 years old. The industry was left in disbelief that such a young, talented performer could be taken in such a way. Even decades later, audiences who hear her cheerful lines in those beloved films often feel a pang of sadness knowing what happened. Judith Barcy's story remains one of the darkest reminders that behind the bright lights of Hollywood, real lives can hide unimaginable pain. George Reeves. For millions of fans, George Reeves was Superman himself, the heroic face of truth and justice in the beloved 1950s TV series. But in 1959, his shocking end left the world with more questions than answers. Reeves was found lifeless in his Los Angeles home after what authorities called a gunshot. The official word labeled it self-inflicted, but the story never sat right with many. Friends pointed to his upcoming wedding, his plans to restart his career, and his cheerful mood the night before. Rumors swirled about jealous rivals, tangled romances, and even mob connections. Hollywood gossip pages exploded, turning Reeves's passing into one of the most controversial mysteries in entertainment history. To this day, debate rages over whether it was deliberate, accidental, or something darker. George Reeves's strange ending created a tragic irony. The man who played Superman, symbol of strength and invulnerability, left the world under circumstances that remain weakly explained. Fans still wonder if we'll ever know the full truth. Bob Crane. Bob Crane became a household name thanks to his starring role in the hit sitcom Hogan's Heroes. With his boyish grin and quick comedic timing, he seemed untouchable in the world of 1960s television. But his death in 1978 shocked Hollywood and remains one of the industry's most puzzling cases. Crane was found lifeless in his Scottsdale apartment. The cause? A brutal blow from an unknown object. Investigators quickly suspected foul play, but evidence was thin, and the prime suspect was eventually acquitted. For decades, debates over who was truly responsible continued, fueled by books, documentaries, and true crime specials. What makes the story so bizarre is the lasting cloud of uncertainty. Crane's final years were already complicated by personal struggles, but the sheer mystery of his end keeps the case alive in pop culture. Bob Crane's passing reminds us that sometimes the strangest Hollywood stories don't fade with time. They just grow murkier. Heather O'Rourke. Heather O'Rourke became a household name after starring as the angelic little girl in the Poltergeist films. With her blonde hair and innocent smile, she became the face of one of the most iconic horror franchises ever made. But her real-life ending was far scarier than anything on screen. In 1988, Heather suddenly fell ill. What doctors first believed was a simple flu turned out to be something far more serious. A hidden bowel obstruction caused a massive infection. Within hours, the young actress went from filming TV shows to fighting for her life in the hospital. She didn't make it. She was only 12 years old. The suddenness of her passing shocked the entire film industry. Fans began whispering about the so-called poltergeist curse, since several cast members from the franchise had also died young. Whether or not the curse was real, Heather's story remains one of the saddest and most bizarre tragedies to hit Hollywood. Tyrone Power. Tyrone Power was Hollywood royalty, known for swashbuckling roles in classics like The Mark of Zorro and Blood and Sand. Handsome, charismatic, and adored worldwide, he seemed destined to remain larger than life forever. But his final scene came not in a movie theater, but on a set where fiction blurred with reality. In 1958, Power was filming the epic Solomon and Sheba in Spain. During a dramatic sword-fighting sequence, he suddenly collapsed mid-duel. At first, everyone thought it was part of the choreography, but moments later, chaos erupted when he failed to get up. Power had suffered a massive heart attack right there on set. Despite rushing him to the hospital, doctors couldn't revive him. He was only 44 years old. The role was later completed by actor Yul Brynner, but the eerie image of Power's last moments remained etched in Hollywood memory. For fans, it was chilling. Their matinee idol lived and died like the heroes he played, on the battlefield, sword in hand. David Strickland. David Strickland was the fun-loving, goofy reporter on the 1990s sitcom Suddenly Susan, where he starred alongside Brooke Shields. His upbeat persona made fans believe he had a bright, easygoing life off-screen too. But behind the laughs, Strickland was fighting private battles. In 1999, after a night of heavy partying in Las Vegas, he failed to show up for work. Concern grew quickly. Days later, he was found lifeless in a motel room. He was only 29. What made the story so bizarre was the suddenness of it all. Strickland had been seen laughing and socializing just hours before. Colleagues described him as upbeat, and there was no outward sign that something was wrong. The contrast between his public charm and his private struggles stunned fans and cast members alike. The show dedicated episodes to him, and fans were left wondering how someone who made millions smile could disappear so suddenly. David Strickland's end was a painful reminder that what you see on the screen doesn't always match the reality off-camera. Carl Switzer. Carl Switzer will forever be remembered as Alfalfa, the freckle-faced star of the classic Our Gang comedies. Fans adored his squeaky singing and awkward charm, but his later life told a very different story. By adulthood, Hollywood had largely forgotten him, and he struggled to make ends meet. In 1959, Switzer visited a friend's home in California during an argument about money. Things heated quickly. Voices rose, and tension turned physical. Suddenly, the confrontation spiraled out of control. and Switzer was struck down in the middle of the altercation. Authorities labeled the act self-defense, but many fans questioned how a once-beloved child star could meet such a strange and violent end. The boy who once made millions laugh with his off-key serenades had been lost in a bizarre, tragic scuffle. Carl Switzer's story remains one of the most jarring examples of how the golden light of Hollywood doesn't always last. Red Fox. Red Fox, the legendary comedian behind Sanford and Son, was known for his lightning-fast wit and booming laugh. He was a pioneer in comedy, influencing generations with his timing and delivery. But the way he left the world was so surreal, it almost felt like one of his sketches. In 1991, while rehearsing on the set of The Royal Family, Fox suddenly clutched his chest and collapsed. The cast and crew erupted in laughter, believing he was doing his famous fake heart attack bit from Sanford and Son. It wasn't until seconds stretched into minutes that panic set in. This time, it was real. Despite efforts to revive him, Fox was gone. The irony was brutal. He had joked about this exact scenario for years, only to experience it in front of an audience that thought it was all part of the act. Red Fox's exit was as unforgettable as his comedy. Shocking, bizarre, and tinged with a cruel sense of irony. Jean Harlow. Jean Harlow was the original blonde bombshell, a superstar of the 1930s Hollywood whose beauty and charisma defined an era. She was only 26 when her story took a strange and tragic turn. During the filming of Saratoga in 1937, Harlow began complaining of fatigue and pain. Co-stars noticed her looking ill, but doctors initially brushed it off as a simple cold. Within days, her condition deteriorated rapidly. It was later revealed she had severe kidney failure, but back then, treatment options were limited. Rumors spread that neglect or strange treatments hastened her decline, but nothing was ever proven. What shocked fans was not just her young age, but the speed with which Hollywood's brightest star faded away. One week she was dazzling cameras, the next she was gone. Her unfinished film was later completed with body doubles, but audiences could sense something missing. Harlow's sudden and unexplained end left a chilling imprint, and many still believe her death carried an air of mystery. Sharon Tate. Sharon Tate was a rising star of the 1960s, known for films like Valley of the Dolls. With her luminous beauty and growing talent, she was on the cusp of becoming a household name. Her life, however, was cut short in 1969 in a way that stunned the entire world. While living in her Los Angeles home with friends, Sharon was the victim of a shocking attack carried out by followers of a dangerous cult. She was 8 months pregnant at the time, making the crime all the more devastating. The incident became one of the most infamous in Hollywood history, not only because of who Sharon was, but also because it marked the end of an era. The carefree golden glow of 1960s Hollywood dimmed overnight. For fans and fellow stars, the loss was unbearable. Sharon Tate's tragic end is remembered as one of the darkest and most bizarre moments tied to fame, where real life was far more horrifying than any script could imagine. Natalie Wood. Natalie Wood was already a legend when she died, remembered for Rebel Without a Cause, West Side Story, and countless other hits. But the way she left this world in 1981 remains one of Hollywood's most enduring mysteries. Wood was on a yacht off Catalina Island with her husband Robert Wagner and actor Christopher Walken. At some point during the night, she vanished. Hours later, her body was found in the water. The official word said accidental drowning, but questions never stopped. Why would she have left the boat? Why were there bruises that didn't quite match the story? Over the years, investigators reopened the case multiple times, but no final answers ever came. For fans, the bizarre and unresolved circumstances were impossible to accept. A beloved actress gone under mysterious waters with more speculation than truth to this day. Natalie Wood's legacy remains glittering, but her final chapter will always haunt Hollywood history. From tragic accidents to eerie mysteries, these stories prove that Hollywood's most dazzling stars sometimes meet the most bizarre endings. Each tale reminds us how unpredictable life really is, even for the people we think of as untouchable. Which of these shocked you the most? Do you believe some of these mysteries will ever be solved? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more untold stories that keep Hollywood unforgettable.